In this stage of the project, we're going to be making our navigation menu responsive. We're going to add a script to our boilerplate, which creates a drop-down that the user can interact with to change the page they're on, and we're going to update the style to make this happen. We're going to be using responsive web design techniques. The goal of responsive web design is to provide an optimal viewing experience across devices. Remember, there are so many different devices with all different form factors, but we want to create only one site that supports them all. Let's get started. So I'm currently in my boilerplate, and now I need to go to the class website. Before I get started, I want to take a look at our final product, the final Bulldog Burritos website that I'm building. As you can see, as the width of the page decreases, it gets to a certain point and it sort of breaks. And the regular navigation is replaced with a drop-down style navigation. This is done because there isn't enough space to include a traditional horizontal menu. As the user changes the options in the drop-down, it takes them to the corresponding page. If the screen is wider, as you can see, it shows the traditional horizontal navigation menu. We're going to add a script right after our jQuery script, and we're going to get that from the class website. Scroll down to the responsive navigation section and click on where it says responsive navigation. As you can see, there's the code right there. Click on Raw, and then copy and paste the entire script into your clipboard. We're going to go back to NetBeans, and we're going to paste that in our script section right underneath our jQuery script. If you want, you can Control A, go to the source menu, and choose Format, just to keep things all nice and clean. I don't expect you to understand everything that this code does, but you should read through it, and it's pretty logical. The script begins by waiting for the document to load. Then it creates an empty drop-down list. Then it adds to that drop-down list a single option, the one that says Go To. The options that go in the drop-down actually come from the original unordered navigation list. So it looks those up, finds the label and the href for each of the anchors, and for each one of those, it adds an option to the drop-down list. Finally, a piece of code is added to the drop-down list so that every time the option changes, so does the URL of the page being served. And that corresponds to the href inside the original anchor. It's pretty elegant code. Save. Let's go ahead and run it. Now you will see that in addition to the traditional horizontal navigation menu, there's a drop-down, and it has been populated with the same values. Remember, the script gets these values from the page. It actually looks at the page, at the current navigation list, and grabs those values out and puts them into the drop-down. All right. We don't need the skeleton. We want our custom CSS. We're going to have to make some changes so that we don't always see these two menus together. The first thing we want to do is hide the traditional unordered list navigation by default. When we do that, all you'll be able to see is our drop-down style one. But this isn't what we really want. What we really want is to show the horizontal traditional menu when the screen is large, and otherwise show the drop-down responsive navigation menu. So we're going to create a section called Media Queries. And I'm going to cut and paste some stuff in there for you to take a look at. The first media query looks for anything larger than mobile. Then there's a section for larger than phablet. And then there's a section for larger than tablet. When the form factor is larger than a tablet, I want to hide the drop-down menu and show the traditional horizontal navigation menu. Save that and let's run it. Now you can see that when the screen is wide, the traditional navigation shows, and otherwise it hides it and shows our drop-down list instead. Once the form factor goes back to larger than tablet, it goes back to the traditional menu. Now we just need to make a couple more style changes. Let's add to the bottom of our site styles section something that will style our select drop-down box. Let's give it a width of 100%, a little bit of margin from the edge, and by default, it will show display block. Remember, the other navigation is hidden by default. Now, when the media query kicks in, there you go. You can see that we have a drop-down. When the option of the drop-down changes, it takes us to the other page. Once we are larger than a tablet, the drop-down menu is hidden and the traditional horizontal menu comes back. This is what responsive web design is all about. Great job, and on to the next video.